The sun is black. The earth is moving. Mountains tremble. Islands shift. Above them, the moon hangs like blood. And across the earth, the most powerful people alive are running. Kings, commanders, the wealthy, the powerful. Men accustomed to being protected by armies, now searching desperately for somewhere to hide. They disappear into caves, into the rocks of the mountains. And then, something extraordinary happens. They begin begging the mountains to fall on them. Not because another army is coming, not because an empire has invaded, not because some human enemy has finally defeated them. They are hiding from something they believe is far more terrifying. The face of the one seated upon the throne, and the wrath of the Lamb. And somewhere inside this impossible vision, an old man named John is watching the earth convulse, watching the heavens change, watching human power collapse. Until Revelation 6 reaches one terrifying question. Who can stand? But none of this began with an earthquake. It did not begin with a blackened sun. It did not begin with falling stars or terrified kings fleeing into caves. It began with a scroll. A scroll held in the right hand of the one seated upon heaven's throne. Written within and on the back. Sealed 7 times. And for one extraordinary moment, no one could open it. John wept. Then someone stepped forward. Not an emperor, not an angel, not a warrior carrying a sword. A lamb, standing as though slain. The Lamb took the scroll. Heaven erupted in worship. Then he reached toward the first seal. John watched. The seal broke. A voice like thunder echoed through heaven. Come. And out of the vision, a white horse appeared. 4 horses would eventually ride. But the 4 horsemen are not the climax of Revelation 6. They are only the beginning. Because after conquest comes war. After war, scarcity. After scarcity, death. Then the horses disappear. The scene changes. John looks toward heaven and hears the voices of the dead asking one devastating question. How long? And after their cry, the 6th seal opens. The earth shakes. The sky changes. And humanity runs. To understand why, we have to return to where John began. Before the horses. Before the earthquake. Before the kings entered the caves. We have to return to the throne. Just before the first seal was opened, the book of Revelation does not begin its great sequence of catastrophe with chaos. It begins with sovereignty. John has already been taken into a vision of heaven. Before him stands a throne. Around it, 24 elders. Flashes of lightning, rumblings, thunder. 4 extraordinary living creatures declaring without ceasing, "Holy, holy, holy." Everything in the scene directs attention toward the one seated upon the throne. That detail is essential, because before Revelation shows John anything terrifying happening on earth, it establishes what is true in heaven. There is a throne, and the throne is occupied. History may appear chaotic from below. Revelation begins by showing John the view from above. Then John notices something. In the right hand of the one seated upon the throne is a scroll. It is written on both sides, and it is secured with 7 seals. To John's ancient audience, a sealed document was not mysterious simply because it was old. Seals carried authority. They could secure documents, authenticate them, protect their contents. But this scroll is different. Because suddenly, a mighty angel cries out, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" And heaven waits. No one steps forward. No one in heaven. No one on earth. No one beneath the earth. No one is found worthy even to look inside. And John begins to weep. Not politely. The language suggests deep grief.
Whatever this scroll represents, John understands that its opening matters. Then one of the elders speaks. "Do not weep. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered." John turns. A lion has been announced. But what he sees is a lamb, standing as though slain. It is one of Revelation's greatest reversals. John hears lion. John sees lamb. He hears conquered. He sees the marks of sacrifice. Revelation is already redefining power. The Lamb approaches, takes the scroll, and heaven erupts. The living creatures fall down. The elders fall down. Songs rise. Thousands upon thousands of angels join them. The Lamb is declared worthy. And then the celebration stops being merely a song, because the Lamb begins to open the scroll. The first seal, the white horse. The Lamb breaks the first seal. One of the 4 living creatures speaks with a voice like thunder. "Come." John looks. A horse emerges. White. Its rider holds a bow. A crown is given to him. And he rides out, conquering and to conquer. The first horseman has entered the vision. And almost immediately, we encounter a mystery. Who is he? For centuries, interpreters have debated his identity. Some have understood the rider positively. Later in Revelation, Christ himself appears upon a white horse, and some interpreters have therefore connected this first rider with Christ or with the victorious advance of the gospel. Others strongly disagree. They point out that Revelation 19 explicitly identifies its rider in unmistakable language. This rider is not explicitly called Christ. And here, he appears as the first figure in a sequence followed by war, scarcity, and death. For that reason, many scholars understand him instead as conquest itself, imperial expansion, military domination, or perhaps a form of deceptive victory. Revelation does not give us enough information to turn speculation into certainty, so we should not.
What John explicitly sees is enough. A white horse, a bow, a crown, and conquest. For a first-century audience, that imagery would not have been abstract. Rome lived by conquest. Its roads, monuments, taxes, and imperial authority rested upon centuries of military victory. And beyond Rome's eastern frontier was another source of anxiety: the Parthians. Their mounted archers were famous. Their ability to fight from horseback had humiliated Roman armies before. Some scholars, therefore, detect possible echoes of that geopolitical world in John's mounted archer. Perhaps John's original audience could look at this rider and recognize something frighteningly familiar: the conqueror, the figure who arrives promising victory, while carrying the possibility of everything that follows victory by force. But Revelation makes another point, quietly. The rider does not seize his crown from heaven. A crown is given to him. That language will repeat. Authority is given. Power is permitted. Boundaries exist. The horseman is frightening, but he is not sovereign. The throne remains elsewhere, and already another seal is breaking. The first rider went out conquering. The second will reveal what conquest often leaves behind. Now, the second seal, when peace is removed. The Lamb opens the second seal. The second living creature says, "Come." Another horse emerges. This one, fiery red. Its rider receives authority to remove peace from the earth, so that people slaughter one another. And he is given a great sword. The color has changed. So has the atmosphere. White becomes red. Conquest becomes bloodshed. The vision is no longer simply about one power defeating another. Now, humanity turns violently upon itself. Peace is removed. That wording is chilling, because peace is one of those realities human beings often notice most clearly only after it disappears. A marketplace can be crowded one morning and abandoned the next. A road used by merchants can become a military route. Fields become battlefields. Homes become shelters. Neighbors become enemies. The red horse rides, and ordinary life collapses behind him. Again, the rider receives authority. Again, something is given to him. The sword is great, but it is not
ultimate. And John's imagery has deep biblical roots. Centuries earlier, the prophet Zechariah had seen colored horses moving through the earth. John's vision appears to draw from this prophetic world. But now, the horses form a terrifying progression.
And there is another echo. Jesus, speaking on the Mount of Olives, warned his disciples of wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Revelation is not simply borrowing those words, but both visions confront the same human illusion, that political order is permanent. It is not. Peace can vanish, and when it does, the consequences do not remain on the battlefield. War travels. It reaches farms, ports, roads, warehouses, markets, homes. A sword may kill immediately, but war has other ways of killing. Destroy the harvest, interrupt trade, displace farmers, close roads. And soon, people who never carried a weapon begin paying the price. The third seal opens. No great sword appears, no battlefield, no charging army. Instead, John sees something almost ordinary, a set of scales. And somehow, that may be even more frightening. The third seal, a day's wage for bread. The third living creature says, "Come." John looks. A black horse. Its rider holds scales in his hand. Then, John hears a voice. It appears to come from among the four living creatures, and the voice announces prices. A measure of wheat for a denarius. 3 measures of barley for a denarius. Then, the mysterious command: do not harm the oil and the wine. To modern ears, these numbers can pass quickly, but John's original audience could hear catastrophe in them.
A denarius was commonly associated with roughly a laborer's daily wage. Imagine working all day, from morning until evening, and receiving enough money to purchase only a small amount of wheat. Enough, perhaps, for one person's basic daily needs. But there is a family waiting at home. So perhaps you buy barley, cheaper, less desirable, 3 measures for the same wage. But then, what remains for anything else? Shelter, clothing, fuel, taxes. Nothing. This is not necessarily a vision of every field becoming empty. In some ways, it is more disturbing than that.
The grain may still be there. The problem is, you can barely afford it.
Imagine the ancient marketplace. A merchant opens a sack. Grain pours onto the scale. Slowly, carefully, not one handful more than necessary. A worker watches. His entire day's wage disappears. The scales balance. He gathers the grain and walks home. Tomorrow, he must do it again. Revelation has moved from the battlefield to the kitchen table. And then comes the strange phrase, "Do not harm the oil and the wine." Why?
Scholars have proposed several possibilities. It may indicate that the devastation is severe but limited. It may reflect agricultural realities in which some crops survive while grain suffers. Some interpreters see economic inequality in the image, basic necessities becoming ruinously expensive while other commodities remain available. The text itself does not tell us enough to be dogmatic, but it does tell us something important. The devastation has boundaries, and the scarcity is devastating.
The first horseman carried conquest. The second carried violence. The third reveals what follows when societies begin to fracture. People still have to eat. Children still become hungry. Families still need bread. And suddenly, every grain matters. But the scales are not the end, because hunger weakens, war spreads disease, social systems collapse, bodies become vulnerable. And from somewhere beyond the black horse, a fourth horse is approaching. Its color is unlike the others. White could suggest victory. Red, blood. Black, scarcity. But this horse has the color of something dying. The fourth seal, his name was Death. The Lamb breaks the fourth seal. The final living creature says, "Come." John looks and sees a pale horse. But pale does not fully communicate the strangeness of John's description. The Greek word is chloros. Elsewhere, it can describe green vegetation. But here, on the body of this horse, the effect is sickly, greenish, pale. The color of a face drained of life. For the first time, John gives the rider a name. And the name is not hidden behind interpretation. It is explicit. Death. And following behind him is Hades. Death rides in front. The realm of the dead follows. The image is almost impossible to make more disturbing. The fourth rider is not merely another conqueror. He is the destination toward which the previous disasters have been moving. Conquest. War. Scarcity. Death.
And authority is given to them over a fourth of the earth, to destroy by sword, famine, death or pestilence, and the wild beasts of the earth. The wording echoes the prophet Ezekiel. Sword, famine, wild beasts, plague. Ancient prophetic judgments now converge inside John's vision. And suddenly, the four horsemen can be seen not merely as four disconnected horrors, but as a progression. Conquest destabilizes. War destroys. War and disruption produce scarcity. Scarcity and violence open the door to death. One horse follows another. One disaster amplifies the next, and death rides through what remains. It would be easy to assume that this is the climax. 4 seals, 4 horses, a quarter of the earth under the shadow of death. Surely Revelation 6 cannot become more disturbing than this. But then, the horses stop. No 5th horse appears. No 5th rider emerges. The rhythm breaks. And that break is important. Because John is about to see something the horsemen cannot explain. The scene moves away from the earth, away from armies, away from markets, away from graves. John looks toward heaven, and beneath an altar, he hears voices.
The 5th seal. How long? The Lamb opens the 5th seal. There is no thunderous charge, no galloping horse, no sword, no scale. John sees souls. Souls beneath the altar. They belong to those who had been slain because of the word of God and because of the testimony they had maintained. The previous seals showed humanity dying. Now, John sees some of the dead, and they speak. Their voices rise together, not in panic, not in confusion, but in a question. How long? How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood? The entire emotional atmosphere of Revelation 6 changes. The horsemen were terrifying. This is heartbreaking. These are people who remained faithful and were killed for it. From the perspective of Earth, their enemies appeared to have won. Their voices had been silenced, their bodies destroyed, their testimony apparently ended. But John's vision reveals another perspective. Heaven has not forgotten their names. Their blood has not vanished from history. Their suffering has not disappeared into silence. And their question reaches the throne. How long? It is one of the most human prayers in the Bible. The Psalms ask it. The prophets ask it. Generations of suffering people have asked it. How long can evil continue? How long can injustice appear successful? How long can the innocent suffer? How long before God acts? Notice what they do not ask. They do not ask whether God exists. They call him Sovereign Lord. They call him holy. They call him true. Their struggle is not primarily with God's existence. It is with God's timing. They believe justice will come. They want to know when. The altar itself carries powerful biblical associations. In Israel's sacrificial system, blood was poured at the base of the altar. John's imagery may present these faithful witnesses as lives poured out in sacrifice. Then each receives a white robe, a symbol of vindication. Earth condemned them. Heaven clothes them. Earth treated them as defeated. Heaven declares otherwise. days. But then comes the answer. Wait. Rest. A little longer. Not forever, but longer. It is one of Revelation's most difficult truths. God hears them, and yet history continues. God sees injustice, and yet final justice does not arrive according to human impatience. The martyrs are vindicated, but they must wait. And for a moment, Revelation seems almost still. No horses, no earthquakes, only white robes, an altar, and the question, how long? Then, the Lamb reaches for another seal, the sixth, and the waiting gives way to catastrophe.
The sixth seal. Creation begins to move. The seal breaks. And immediately, the earth convulses. A great earthquake. No army causes it. No rider announces it. The ground itself moves. The foundation beneath cities, palaces, fortresses, temples, markets, and armies becomes unstable. Then John looks upward.
The sun becomes black, like sackcloth. Daylight seems to die. The full moon becomes like blood. Then the stars of heaven appear to fall toward the earth, like unripe figs torn from a tree when a violent wind shakes its branches. One, then another, then countless lights falling. John is describing something beyond ordinary experience, and he reaches into the language of Israel's prophets to do it. Isaiah had spoken of the heavens being shaken, and stars no longer giving their light. Joel spoke of the sun turning to darkness, and the moon to blood, in connection with the day of the Lord. Jesus' Olivet Discourse also uses cosmic imagery in describing the climactic coming of the Son of Man. John stands within that biblical prophetic tradition. These images communicate more than unusual astronomy. They announce upheaval on the largest imaginable scale. Everything humanity assumes is fixed appears to move. Earth below, heaven above. Then, the sky itself recedes. John describes it like a scroll being rolled up. Imagine standing beneath the heavens and watching what appeared permanent withdraw. Then the mountains move. Not one mountain, not one island. John says every mountain and island was moved from its place. The world people knew no longer feels recognizable. But Revelation has one final image to show us, and perhaps it is more shocking than the earthquake. Because John now stops looking at creation and begins looking at people.
When every human title becomes meaningless, John sees kings, the great, commanders, the rich, the powerful, slave, free. 7 descriptions, from the highest levels of society to those with almost no social power at all. And suddenly, every distinction
collapses. The king and the slave have the same problem. The commander and the civilian have the same problem. The wealthy and the poor face the same sky. The powerful cannot command what is happening. For thousands of years, human beings have constructed systems of rank, palaces, titles, armies, wealth, political power, military power, social status.
But now, none of it matters. A king cannot command the sun to shine. A general cannot deploy an army against an earthquake. Gold cannot bribe a mountain. A palace cannot stop the heavens from changing. And so the powerful do something extraordinary. They run into caves among the rocks of the mountains. The people who once lived above everyone else now want to disappear beneath the earth. And then they speak, not to God, to the mountains. Fall on us! Hide us! Hide us from the face of the one seated upon the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. The phrase is almost paradoxical. Wrath of a lamb. A lamb appears vulnerable. A lamb does not inspire armies to flee. But this is the lamb Revelation has already introduced. The lamb who was slain. The lamb who conquered. The lamb heaven declared worthy. The lamb who took the scroll. The lamb who broke the seals. The apparent victim is revealed as the figure before whom earthly power collapses. And now, the rulers understand something. This is not merely geological, not merely political, not merely economic. They believe they are confronting judgment. For the great day of their wrath has come. And then, everything stops. Because there is one question left. Who can stand? And who can stand? John does not answer. Not here. Revelation 6 simply ends. And perhaps that is exactly the point. Because look at what the chapter has dismantled. Conquest could not provide security. Military strength could not provide security. Peace could disappear. Economic stability could collapse. Death could reach across nations. Faithful people could be persecuted. Mountains themselves could move. And now, kings are hiding in caves. Everything human beings normally trust has failed. Yet one thing in the entire vision has never moved: the throne. Before the first horse rode, there was a throne. When the red horse removed peace, there was a throne. When grain became ruinously expensive, there was a throne. When death appeared, there was a throne. When the martyrs cried, "How long?" their cry went toward the throne. When the earth shook, the throne did not. Revelation's world is terrifying, but it is not godless. History appears chaotic from the earth. From heaven, it has never escaped God's knowledge or sovereignty.
That does not mean every tragedy should be simplistically identified as a specific divine judgment. Revelation gives no permission for careless speculation. It does not tell us to attach each horseman to whichever politician, war, technology, disease, or economic crisis dominates today's headlines.
John's vision is far larger than that. It confronts something timeless. Human beings build civilizations and begin believing they are permanent. Empires rise and begin believing they are eternal. Rulers accumulate power and begin believing they are untouchable. Wealth grows and begins feeling like security. Until Revelation asks, what happens when everything you trusted begins to move? The answer of chapter 6 is frightening. Kings hide, commanders hide, the wealthy hide, the powerful hide, slave and free hide. And the question echoes across the final verse. Who can stand? But notice something extraordinary. The seventh seal does not open immediately. The narrative pauses. Something interrupts the sequence. John has just watched the world shake. The sun has darkened. The moon has become like blood. The stars appear to fall. The heavens themselves seem to retreat. Mountains have moved. Kings are hiding, and humanity is left asking, the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? Then, before the seventh seal, John sees something else. 4 angels, 4 winds, a command that destruction must wait. And then, a mark, a people sealed. After that, John sees a multitude so vast no one can count them. From every nation, every tribe, every people, every language, standing. That word matters, because Revelation 6 ended by asking, who can stand? And Revelation 7 begins to show John the answer. The horsemen were never the whole story. War was never the whole story. Death was never the whole story. Even cosmic terror is not the final image. John has watched the world shake. Kings are hiding. The heavens themselves appear to retreat. And Revelation 6 leaves humanity with one haunting question. The great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? For one moment, Revelation allows that question to hang over everything. Then John looks again, and what he sees next changes the picture completely.